Hello, I'm Richard Burton. I'm a watercolourist on the Yorkshire coast here at Bempton, near Bempton Cliffs, and I've been painting watercolour and I want to unlock the magic. And today we're going to tackle being able to deal with water. Are you fed up with water? Difficulty of painting watercolour in water? It really is a challenge. It can be a challenge. You might feel as though it's too much of a challenge. Well, I'm going to demystify that, and not only we're going to demystify it, we're going to use the autumn colours that we've got now as well, and we're going to really get into it and show you how, with some simple steps, how easy it is to tackle what looks like a really complicated scene. So come on now, let's get down to it. And we're going to tackle the autumn colours at New York, at Central Park, which is Bow Bridge. And for those that you know it, it's really iconic. It's a lovely setting, lovely trees, and it's great for capturing water. So we're going to tackle that. And before we do, I must draw your attention to our watercolour guide that we've been working on for some time now. This is a free resource. It's in the link below. And if you're new to watercolour, or just coming back to watercolour, or want to sort of demystify watercolour, this might well help you. I'm sure it will. Please just grab a copy. It's got some 5 tips to get you going, to get your understanding of watercolour. And alongside that, we do a weekly newsletter as well, which is all about tips and techniques. And that's all for you to enjoy. So please grab yourself a copy and really get used to it. Okay, so let's get down to the drawing first. The scene is Bow Bridge at Central Park. And the bridge is obviously going to be a central feature, but I've just got it in the centre, but just off the centre to the right, which I think will make a nice composition. And I'm going to set the first line is to get in the horizon line, which is going to be the lakeside by the water's edge, and then put that in and then work my way out proportionally from there. So get the bridge in and then put the buildings in and work the whole picture together from that point. Now, the cityscape is really important. It's important that we get those buildings and the skyscrapers to the right proportions. So we need to sort of get those in the right place. Get the heights, look at the heights, and then proportion them accordingly so that they sit nicely on the eye. So they get the right heights and the right locations. And then obviously we've got this tree in the foreground, which is quite an important tree. I'm just going to put it's a winter tree. I'm going to put the main branches in. The rest of it's going to be put in with the bush. And then when I come to both sides, that's really simply keep those loose for the other trees and the autumn colours. Keep that very loose with my drawing. And then I'm going to put in the boats. There's a few boats under the bridge, and which are just going to find that little bit of focal point. And that will be sufficient for the drawing. Okay, so we're going to start the painting by painting the sky, and we're going to put a warm wash over the trees, and then we're going to bring it down into the water and just get that underwash in place for the water, which will capture the ripples. And the important thing is, with our palette, we want to lay out the colours as we need them so that they're going to be set up, or effectively a colour story, I call it. So we'll have the colours ready to use on the painting. Right, so we've got 5 brushes that I'm going to use today. I've got 2 size 10 brushes, which are going to be used for the colours and the bulk of the painting. I've then got a couple of wash brushes, one that's definitely going to be used, the other one we'll see if we use both of them as we go. And then I've also got a brush for detail, which will pick up the necessary points that I need to bring the painting to life. Okay, so we're going to start with the sky and bring that down, which is cobalt blue, purple lake and raw sienna. And I'm going to put that on a moist surface, so we're going to pick up some clouds and get some atmosphere in the sky. Bring that down into the area where the trees are. I'm going to add a little bit of raw sienna in there to give some warm tone to the picture. Now I'm going to add some masking fluid to protect some of the highlights in the water, and that's using a masking pen. And I'm then going to bring down the water, that first wash of the water, using cobalt blue, purple lake and light red, and then a little bit of yellow ochre just at the bottom of the page, just to give that variation. And with that combination, I'm going to pick up the ripples, that initial ripples in the water. And as it moves to the damp, the ripples are then put on using the purple lake and a little bit of cobalt blue. Okay, so now we're going to work from the distance and we're going to put the buildings in. And these are going to be combinations of cobalt blue, purple lake, light red and yellow ochre to get that colour range. Some are a brighter red, some are a blue. All of them are transparent looking, so they want to have that feel of distance in the background. It's important that we get that right, get the right tone, so they're going to be quite pale, but it's important that we get them in and we get that little bit of suggested detail in there. And then as I come down, I'm then going to put in the bridge, which is again similar combination of colours but a little bit stronger because it's a little bit further forward. After that, as long as the background buildings are dry, which is really crucial, we then need to put in the tree, which is that winter tree, and that's going to start off with a light wash, just a light with a small brush of yellow ochre, which provides that little bit of warmth. Into that, I'm going to mix a strong ultramarine blue, burnt umber, dark grey, which is going to go on and create the structure of the tree. And the combination of the two will give that little bit of life to the tree, and it will really look quite effective. But I'm not going to put the full element of the tree in, not the canopy area. I'm just going to put the basic tree trunks and the main branches. Okay, so now we're going to deal with the tree again, the main tree, that winter tree. The background's all dry, and we're going to create a canopy-like wash, which will capture smaller branches. That's going to be cobalt blue and burnt sienna. And then I'm going to use my 10 brush, and I'm going to get my wash, and I'm going to drag it on the surface delicately, holding the brush almost horizontal to the surface of the paper, so that I'm catching just the surface of the paper, and this gives a broken wash, which is really effective at capturing that feel of 3 dimension of a winter tree. So now we're going to deal with the central trees, and this is a case of putting in those autumn colours and the autumn greys and the greens onto a reasonably damp surface. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay out the colours on my palette. So I've got my yellows, and then I've got a red, and then I've got the greens laid out on the palette. And what we start, I'm going to put the yellow in first, which is basically yellow ochre and a little bit of cadmium yellow. And then I'm going to use some red, which is going to be cadmium red and probably a little bit of scarlet red, just to drop in, put those. And then I'm going to mix the greens. The greens are going to be cobalt turquoise, cadmium yellow, and a little bit of raw umber. And it's that combination of them. I'm going to drop them in as I go and put the darks in, and the darks are then going to go on top, and they're going to be ultramarine blue and burnt sienna dropped in, which will create that feeling of 3 dimension to it. A lot of it's done on the damp, and I gradually build these up. Some of it at the end will be onto a dry surface just to create a little bit of crispy feel to it, but most of it's going to be done on the damp. Okay, so we're now in a situation where we've got the city in, we've got the trees in, we've got the foreground, we've got the bridge in. We're sort of comfortable with that. I'm probably going to do a little bit more detail as we go, but essentially now you're at the situation where we've got the big element, which is the really key, which is the water. Now, I want to show you a trick now that I do quite frequently, particularly when I've got a subject that I've done quite a lot of work to a painting and I don't want to spoil it, and I want to sort of make sure I get this next bit right, and that's the water. So what I do is I cut a piece of paper the same size as the area I want to cover, and we have a practice, and we can have several practices. This is what I'm going to show you. This is sort of an example of what I've done, so you can sort of get a feel for the reflections. Now, do they work? Are they the right mix? Are they the right sort of flow? So you can literally use them on this space to get that effect. I'll show you another one, a slightly different tone. This is just too harsh, to be honest. I'm wanting really to get a much smoother wash, smoother diffused wash. The tones are probably right, but it's too harsh. I've got another one. So you can keep going, and we can have a go and practice this. And this is a great way of experimenting and practice on a painting, and you're not ruining the picture, you're just sort of experimenting on an extra piece of paper so you can get the effect that you're after. And then this is the final one, which is probably nearer to what I'm wanting, and it's got more of that diffuse. So let's have a go. What I'm after is a diffused wash that's going to come down, and then there are going to be these edges that are going to come up against the earlier wash with the ripples that we put in before. So I'm going to just create a wet on dry towards the bottom, but wet on wet for the majority. So now we deal with the water. I'm happy with the idea of what we're going to craft here. I'm going to paint it mostly on the damp, so I'm going to wet the surface first, bring that wetness down, start with the bridge, bring it all the way down to a certain point, probably about two-thirds of the way down the water, and then stop it there, because I'm going to transition from a wet to a dry with a few brush strokes at the end. That's the crucial bit. Now the next thing is to start with the lighter colours, which is going to be your yellows, basically yellow ochre and that little bit of green grey that we've got around the bridge area. Drop that in and let it diffuse, and then when it's diffusing in, drop in some darks in and just pull the brush strokes down with a few horizontal strokes as well, and you'll get that feeling of shimmering water and shimmering light with the trees coming down, and that will work really, really well. You're going to then bring my brush down towards the dry part of the paper, and I'm gradually, quickly, just going to put a few brush strokes in just to give that feeling of those reflective little bits that are just in the water, just sparkling on the water, and just do those with some decisive brush strokes that will just capture that magic of the water reflecting in the lake. Okay, so now we've got the water in, we've got the rest of the landscape in, and I've got to let this dry before I can put the detail in. So now's a good time to have a coffee. Okay, so we come back to it now again after it's thoroughly dried, and then I'm going to get my small brush. Firstly, move off the masking fluid, rub off the masking fluid, and make sure that's removed. That provides that sparkle to the water. And then with my small brush, I'm going to add some darks, just give that little bit of structure here and there, put those darks in where they're needed. And then alongside that, I'm also going to use some Chinese white or some acrylic white and just put some highlights in, particularly around the figures of the boats. just around on the bridge, just to give that extra little bit of sparkle. And that combined should make the whole thing come to life. Okay, so there we have it. I've once again put a mount around the painting, and I'm really rather pleased with it. And I hope you saw how we tackled this with taking some simple steps, having some pauses between them. And by having those simple steps and those pauses and having a strategy to it, we've really created a lovely painting. And we've got that feeling of water, we've got that feeling of autumn colours. And I think it's come together, and I'm quite pleased with it. I really am. So I hope you've enjoyed that. And as I say, once again, I want to say a big thank you to everybody, because we've just hit 3,000 subscribers, which is staggering for us. We're only 9 months into this YouTube channel, and I'm meeting so many new people. People are emailing me with wanting more information about the paintings and tips and tricks, and I'm happy to help them. Honestly, we're all happy to help them, and we're replying to as many comments as we possibly can, as quickly as we can. And it's great to see some new paintings, new ideas, new scenes to paint as well. There's a whole raft in there, and please keep sending them in. That's really great. What we're going to do is every so often we're going to pick somebody's photograph and we're going to turn it into a watercolour and show you how we can do it as well. So there's a lot we're planning, and of course, don't forget, for those that you are new, please do like and subscribe. It's important you do. The button's below, and that will get us out to a wider audience. And like I said earlier, please don't forget that free watercolour guide. That's yours to keep, and I'm sure you'll find it useful. We really do. I mean, that's been something we've been working on for some time now, and I think you'll find it really helpful. So, without further ado, all I'm going to say now is enjoy and keep painting.